Let's start with a song that's going to unite all of us. Am Yisrael Chai, may the people of Israel live. Od Avinu, forever. Let's join together. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael 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 Chai. Od Avinu Chai.
Od Avinu Chai.
Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai.
Shalom. Thank you for joining me tonight, especially so many of my close friends. It really means a lot to me. I want to share the details of my recent 3-day mission to Eretz Yisrael. My goal tonight is to transmit you to Israel as if you were with me on that 3-day trip. Okay? It's not a political conversation. It's not a military conversation. You are just going to be sub-witnesses to what I witnessed. Okay? So I'm passing on my witnessness to you. I know, Louise, it's not a word. So it was a mission. It wasn't a trip. It was a purposeful visit. The purpose was to bear witness and support and hug Israel and its people. UJA organized the mission, and there were 24 of us who attended, including my son, Robbie, and my dad, who's here tonight, Philip. So that was pretty special, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? That's who we had on the trip. It was a 72-hour period of extreme polarity. There was unimaginable horror coupled with mind-boggling bravery and heroism. The devastation to the people and the land is unquantifiable. Words such as tragic and barbaric or horrifying, surreal, traumatic, sad, grief-stricken do not tell the story. Notwithstanding this, almost all the people that we met in Israel were resolute and singularly determined to rebuild their country and make it safer and better. The resilience, resourcefulness, confidence, brilliance of the people inspired me, and I'm usually really sensitive, so I fed off of their energy, and I was able to be strong on this trip, which I was fearful of not being able to handle the trip, but seeing how they handled day-to-day life gave me the power to literally feel their energy. The trauma and physical pain of the country is palpable, yet hope and faith is ever present, and they are ready to fight and win this war. And most importantly, the hostages are their number one priority. In less than 72 hours, we had 16 different opportunities to witness and see, feel, smell, and taste and hear of the atrocities and learn of the bravery of the Israelis. For tonight's talk, I had to choose only some of these 16 encounters. Rabbi gave me 20 minutes, I may get 24, but I'm not going to take you to every place we went, but there were 16 separate encounters in a 2.5-day trip. So it was a lot. The first place we visited, and appropriately so, was the hostage and missing persons headquarters and also Hostage Square. You've seen that on TV, I'm sure. Hostage Square is located in the plaza of the Tel Aviv Museum. It would almost be like Lincoln Center, like how you feel. And just so you know, that building that Tel Aviv Museum was in was the place where Ben Gurion declared Israel's independence. So it's a strange juxtaposition of the hostages square being right outside the door of that building. The plaza is now a spontaneous forum for art and filled with messages of hope and anger and sadness with respect to the hostages. There was even a mock tunnel that they created on the plaza that you walked through. It was chilling. At the hostage headquarters building, we met privately with Shelly Shemtov. She's the mother of a beautiful 21-year-old son, Omer Shemtov. She's been a lot on social media, I believe. And also Mary Ann Lipschitz, the granddaughter of 85-year-old Yocheved, who was released in captivity after several weeks, and Oded Lipschitz, her 83-year-old grandfather, who's still in captivity. So both these people talked to us. Shelly Shemtov had a poster of her son in her lap the whole time she spoke with him. It was just so sad. She explained that the morning of October 7th, 6:30 is when the whole massacre started, that she started getting in touch with her son shortly thereafter by text messaging and WhatsApp. And they were talking and they're tracking him and texting, and then all of a sudden she saw that he was heading towards Gaza. And she has not heard from him since. Enough on that. A footnote, though, I'd like to mention Omar suffers from celiac disease and doesn't have his medicine. So you know how you feel when your kid doesn't have like the medicine for the night, right? Mayan Lipschitz, whose grandmother was released in October, shared with us her grandmother's account of her barbaric kidnapping. Her grandmother told of how she was placed sideways on a motorbike and whisked into Gaza with no shoes, a nightgown, and bad legs. So try and just let that sink in, right? She was hit with sticks and was blindfolded and was walked through dark and dangerous tunnels barefoot. I mean, can you just imagine? I mean, like walking from my car in my beach club to my cabana without shoes is like arduous, right? So this is just so unimaginable. So we spoke about the grandmother. And now our next stop, we visited a major hospital complex that includes the Sorovsky Medical Center. This is, it's kind of like analogous to North Shore, the big campus. It is the home of the world's most advanced trauma center. Necessity being the mother of invention, Israel has created the most incredible trauma reaction team in the world. We met with the vice chair and lead doctor of the trauma center, Dr. Hayal Haznavia. Our meeting took place on the 13th floor heliport, right? So picture there's a hospital and on the top is a heliport. And we went to the heliport where they've had almost 100 soldiers delivered from ambulances that are virtually in the air, helicopters that are equipped as ambulances. They land on the top of this hospital. There's an elevator at the top of the heliport, and they're transferred down to the trauma unit. He gave us gory details, which I can't really recall, of how they've saved so many lives and only lost 2 people so far. He talked about the coordination of the medical teams and how each discipline is part of that trauma unit, an orthopedist, the heart guy, this guy. And he said how they use AI and robotics to work their magic. It was truly outstanding. And it was brilliance and resilience on full display. Our next stop at the hospital, we went to the rehab unit, where a lot of the soldiers get rehab after being injured in the field. And we met with a 23-year-old fellow whose name was Ayal. He didn't tell us his last name on purpose. We couldn't take pictures, but boy, was he good looking. 6'2", so handsome. And he spoke to us. His Hebrew was great. His English was a little broken, and he told us that he was in charge of detecting explosives in buildings. And his job is the second in command. He would go in and knew how to disarm explosives. He thought he did that, and when he walked into a building, he stepped on a carpet that was booby-trapped, and he blew his leg. Shrapnel went into his leg. He had damage to his stomach, but miraculously he was able to be taken off and into the hospital, and now it's 2.5 months later, and his only thing is he wants to get back into the field and do his job. Also, while we were at the rehab center, it didn't get lost on me. It wasn't part of my trip, but there was about 15 women, young girls, maybe 18, 19, that were visiting a friend of theirs, and they were all dressed in Israeli IDF garb. And you saw these girls, they're practically like, look, bas mitzvah age. Knowing that they're out there fighting was just chilling. Okay, so we're up to dinner the first night, right? We've only the first night here, but we'll get through this. Dinner that night was at the beautiful home of Natalie and Yoav Weigenfeld. Yoav is the head of Cowen's Israeli office. They live in an exclusive private community in the suburbs of Tel Aviv. It's called Kfar Shamru. The security is a little better than Boca West, let's just say that. There were over 50 Israelis that were invited in addition to us from the mission. They were from different fields, the military, the philanthropic center, health field, medical field, mental health experts, from the media. So we were mingling with them for 2.5 hours, and different people spoke to us. A man whose son died 2 weeks ago spoke to us. A woman whose son is a hostage spoke to us. People who have been in the army for years spoke about the trauma that they suffer and how Israel is in need of mental health services beyond what you could ever imagine. It was crazy. The common denominator in the whole room was, and I don't know how many of us have children serving in the military right now, in this room, right? Or something like your relative. Every person in that room either served, is serving in this most recent operation, Sword of Iron, or their kids are. Every person in the room, no matter what their economic status is, no matter who they are in society. It's actually just, I was awestruck from that. And I guess the thing that left me the most was the trauma that these people spoke of, and how they really are trying to figure out how to cope with the trauma. They have a lot of groups, like they tend to get together in groups and spend days together in groups sharing their grief. But it's everywhere. One woman said to me, and she said, please remember this, we can't stop crying, but we must keep living and smiling. We can't stop crying, but we must keep living and smiling. Day 2, first stop is a 90-minute ride to the grounds of the Nova Music Festival. The only way to get there is via Route 232. 232 is the road where Hamas slaughtered hundreds of festival goers, military personnel, police, and kibbutzniks. It's one road, it's like Montauk Highway. It takes you down to Montauk, and Hamas literally was waiting on these roads when they invaded the kibbutz and everything. People were leaving in their cars, and they were shot with, things on your shoulder, Brian, what would that be called? Or it's just bombs, fire bombs. It's just incredible. So the highway is now known as the Death Highway. The festival grounds are a killing field, literally. Witnessing the music festival site was beyond description. I stood on the dance floor where the festival goers were killed. And where each person was killed is a poster of that person. So you're standing there and you're picturing dancing, and these terrorists just come in and shoot people mercilessly on a dance floor. It made me sick. It was akin to visiting a concentration camp, practically. I don't want to compare miserables, but this is so fresh, and you go to these grounds, it's just shattering. So at this festival, we met with the founder, one of the co-founders, promoters of the festival, a guy named Ofer Amir. He was composed and focused and moving forward, this guy. He had just, been at a festival with 4,000 people, 360 people were killed, and 40 were kidnapped. So 10%, 1 out of 10, was either killed or kidnapped. He even got shot while running away, but survived. He's coming to America now to try to raise money for mental health services for all the festival goers who suffered the trauma of having been that day at the festival, survivor guilt, and other things like that. And then a week after October 7th, he had his first child. This is Ofer Amir. The next person we met who told us a story, I still find it almost impossible to actually believe. But that's what we were there for, to bear witness. So this fellow, his name was Ron Sege. He's about a 35-year-old, I'd say, Sephardic Jew who went to the concert festival at 2 a.m. in the morning, set up his blanket and his friends and started partying and dancing already at 5 in the morning. The massacre started, and he just, with his brother, decided to split from the group. They went from running through fields, being shot at. They were in bunkers, being shot over. They were running through the field. And amazingly, he came upon a car that was running, a Hyundai car that was running. The motor was on. The people who were in that car must have abandoned the car and left the car running. Okay, this is... He then got in the car, ended up picking up 8 other people. At one point, he said he had 10 people in his car. His brother's leg was like damaged from the people. 3 days later, he found a guy who owned the car. He returned the car. Like what? Like just a miracle. So you can see what I'm talking about, the highs and the lows that were experienced on this mission. The next topic I'll be sharing with you is the massacres and destruction that occurred at 2 of the kibbutzes we visited. We got a first-hand account of the devastation wrought by the subhuman Hamas terrorists. How many have been to a kibbutz, actually been to a kibbutz? Okay, so you kind of know what a kibbutz is like. The kibbutz we visited is called Kibbutz Be'eri. It's one of Israel's largest. And prior to October 7th, life there was idyllic, literally out of a movie. The kibbutz is located only 3 miles from Gaza, though. Of the 1,000 residents, over 100 were murdered, 25 taken hostage. The kibbutz was set aflame and bombed. It is a virtual graveyard today. We walked through it. My father walked through this. This is walking over debris and blood-stained walls. It was beyond. The destruction like rivals Beirut. Like if you see pictures of Beirut in its worst, that's what it reminded me of. At Be'eri, we were led by a guy named Lotan Pinyan through the place. He is born in Dimona. You know what Dimona is known for, right? Corn. And he moved to kibbutz when he got married. He's a Jewish philosopher and the current COO of a group whose mission is to help Bedouins incorporate into Israel's society, right? A tall order. He has 3 kids. His in-laws live 10 houses from where he lived. 2 of his grandchildren are younger and often spend time at the grandpa's house. They didn't have to, it's a kibbutz. They just walk down the block, they get a bagel and come back to the house, or after school, they go do their homework. But on October 7th, both grandparents were murdered while Lotan and his family huddled in their safe room for over 24 hours, without food, without water, without going to the bathroom. These safe rooms were not designed for this type of attack. They were designed that if bombs are coming down, you go into the safe room, God forbid if the bomb hits near your house, and then you come out. 20 minutes. They were there, and others, we met numerous people, 20, 30, some people 40 hours. he says it was a miracle his kids were not like sleeping over that night at their house. Saturday night they go out, but that night he stayed home. Challenges to build this kibbutz are staggering. The decision to potentially move back to the kibbutz at one point is daunting. The economic toll is beyond. And Lotan has to figure out what his next move is while he lives in a hotel room with his 3 kids. But with grit and determination, he still supports his country, despite how he thinks the Gaza Strip was handled by the IDF during the time period. That's for another day. The other kibbutz we visited was called Kibbutz Nechal. It's a large agricultural place. It has over 200 acres. Doesn't have that many residents, but 100 Hamas militants infiltrated this kibbutz, killing almost 50 people and kidnapping 12. What was unusual about this kibbutz was that Hamas also planned what they call agricultural terrorism. So they had a map of everything, right? Google Maps. And when they went to this kibbutz, they disabled the irrigation system. They shot holes in the lines. They spread fertilizer to poison. They killed the animals. They stole tractors. They burned tractors. So obviously that would be Dayenu if that's all that happened, right? But it still shows the venal baseness of Hamas that really just despises us. However, at this kibbutz, there was a man, his name was Aviv, big burly guy. And he was like one of the chief heads of the kibbutz. And he was steadfast in saying, we're going to build this kibbutz better than ever. I'm already staying here partially. And he took us to the perimeter of the kibbutz's residential area, and we were 300 meters away from the Gaza Strip. Maybe I forgot to mention that. Their kibbutz is like 500 meters, and then they took us to an area with 300 meters away from the Gaza border. I never felt unsafe. Call me stupid. I don't know. Never entered my mind. But when you were there, you could hear Israel bombing Gaza, and you could feel the earth vibrate, and you were shook up sometimes when the noise was so loud. Next up is called the car graveyard, right? I didn't know what on the syllabus or itinerary that they're taking me to a car graveyard. The car graveyard. As I discussed, there's that Route 232, the north-south corridor in the area, and Hamas was able to unload rockets and fire bombs and pepper the area with machine guns, just killing people at random that were leaving the festival or leaving the kibbutzes. Several thousand vehicles were attacked on October 7th. Those on the road included the IDF and the police and the kibbutzniks. The cars were totaled. 800 cars were transported to 2 different car graveyards. And they're called car graveyards for 2 reasons. One is because the remains of certain people that were incinerated in the car are still somewhere in the car. And they believe that that car technically has human remains in it. And secondly, it's for the cars themselves that are totaled and maybe it will be a graveyard, maybe it will be a museum, I don't know. But they're talking about burying the cars themselves, so therefore that would count as burying those people that got incinerated. We walked around there, Robbie and I, and you saw the things from people's everyday, whether it was a towel or a chair. It's so impossible to comprehend what I'm saying. That's why I am talking to you tonight. That's why I called you when I got home. Day 3. Third day, we started off at the IDF Oketz Canine Unit, which is where the Israel military and the dogs are trained to help serve the IDF. We met with one of the former commanders of the canine unit, and he explained to us things like where they buy the dogs. The dogs are bought in like Austria or Germany. They're not actually raised here because they want to get the best of the dogs. They figure it's a waste of time and money to breed all these dogs and have only 1 out of 10 be able. So they go across, they buy the dogs, they train the dog. The dog training could take about 9 months, and it takes about a year to a year and a half to train the person that has to be with the dog, right? And these folks are invaluable. They're kind of requested. There's like a waiting list for the battalions requesting which dog units, which unit will get a dog. Sadly, over 15 dogs have already been killed since October 7th, which probably translates to dozens and dozens of lives that were saved by these trained dogs. Also at Oketz, the canine unit, we met with a father of a commander in the canine unit, and his son died on October 7th, and he told us of his son. And I must say, his composure was almost too composed for me, and he felt his son died with valor. Moving on to another topic, there are over 200,000 people who have been evacuated from their homes and communities. The country of Israel is actually shrinking with regard to the land that is safe for living. There are approximately 100,000 people from northern Israel and another 120,000 from the Gaza area. That's basically the population of Haifa. We visited 2 places that are housing these refugees. So they're practically refugees. They call them in-country refugees. They're refugees in their own country. So they were moved to a hotel at a kibbutz Shefarim, and the hotel is called the Hotel Shefarim. My son stayed at that hotel on birthright. And this is where now the evacuees are staying temporarily while they try and figure out where the housing is. They have to they showed they had to put laundry machines in the hotel. They have to provide cooking. You know, it's not equipped for living, the hotels. At the hotel, we met Leora Elyon, who told us that her kibbutz was under attack. She lived in a safe room with her 2 granddaughters for over 27 hours. No food, no drink, just a phone. Different phones they had. They kind of saved the phone battery. And her son died outside of her unit while she was in the safe room. She had no idea till she came out that he had died. Their granddaughter, 15 years old, her name was Galil, is very bright, and she led the WhatsApp group chat, which included the IDF. And she helped them figure out where to be, where the pool was, where to go for this. Maybe they're over there. And they didn't know that she was 15 years old. She commandeered the WhatsApp conversation. I guess she met the IDF after, and they're like, who's Galil? And a 15-year-old girl came out. It's crazy. These stories are crazy. Leora, the grandmother, was so proud, even though her son had died, and so dedicated to her liberal views in life, that she mentioned that the most important thing to her was not only returning the hostages, but making peace with the Palestinians. And that was her priority. And she told us that she was going to go, after meeting with us, to be on a 4:30 Zoom call with Palestinians from Gaza that had lost their children. I mean, incredible. Absolutely incredible. We next met later in the day with 5 evacuees from northern Israel, and they explained to us their plight and how difficult their plight was, that the illusion of safety on the north was no longer even an illusion. It was no longer feasible People were evacuated from their homes. They're dispersed in Tiberias and other places, and uncertain if they'll ever move back to their communities. Still, they had their heads held high and were willing to do what they need to make the nation thrive. It was absolutely beautiful, the dedication. There are tens of thousands of volunteers in Israel from various businesses and sectors that are working side by side with the government to rebuild the country. One organization is the leader in providing all types of assistance. It's the #1 organization. It's called Brothers and Sisters for Israel. We met with one of its founders, a guy named G.G. Levi Weiss. He's a famous venture capitalist and has dedicated the rest of his time now to running this organization, making sure they have money, flying his personal plane to pick up people around the world who want to come back and serve in Israel. Shock, don't do that. You may, right? But he was so brilliant. He explained to us, so they do all these things. They handle meals and clothes for people who are displaced, mental health services, helping to pay for mental health services. They buy combat gear for the soldiers. They help with housing for the displaced. And they establish what's called a national logistics center, where, I guess it's over my head, the communication between the country has never been better, and they created this out of necessity. And lastly, I want to talk about a really inspiring figure. I think it's a good way to close the conversation. Her name is Michal Vissi-Yahu. She heads the Eshkol Community Center and is the mayor's liaison. So Eshkol is like a county-ish, and encompasses a lot of the Gaza envelope. So she's in the government for that. She spoke to us about her determination and resolve one night at dinner. She said that they crushed our homes and killed our sisters and brothers, but they did not and will not crush our spirit or hope. Her remarks left not a dry eye in the room. She went on and said, "We did not choose October 7th, but we will choose to be better and stronger and smarter as a result of October 7th. Life is still 95% heaven and 5% hell. Focus on the 95%. I'd like everybody to stand up. We're going to sing Hatikva together. If you don't know Hatikva, try and learn it. I sing it twice a day. My wife, sometimes when I'm going to sleep, I say, I forgot to sing Hatikva. I got to sing it now. In the shower, I sing it. It's guttural, and it makes you feel good. So I'll hand the mic over to
National Anthem of Israel, Hatikva, the hope. Liot am chofshi b'artzenu, to be a free people in our own land. Kol od balev benima, nefesh Yehudi chomiyah, ulefate mizrach kadima, ayin letzion Sophia, od lo avda tikvateinu, hatikva bat shnot alpayim, liotam chofshi be'artzenu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim, bom 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 li otam chofshi be'artzenu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim. Continue the spirit of this is our people, and we need to do all that we can to give our love, our support, and to let everyone know that, yes, the people of Israel continue to live and live strong.